This week I wanted to do a Disney fan art piece, so I did Sebastian the Crab from Little Mermaid. Some while ago I worked on a Disney project for Little Mermaid over in Florida, and it was these crabs for the Little Mermaid experience. And basically, as you walk in, you get to influence what these crabs do, so you can point at them and tell them to grab things for you. And I really enjoyed doing it. It was a very, very simple build. I had such a great time doing that project, and I thought it'd be great to emulate that in Nomad. So as always with Nomad, I put a reference in the background. So here I just put a sketch that I'd made and started with a basic sphere. Now, those of you that follow this channel, you know I don't like to just copy or take reference. I like to draw my own reference. So I just took some pictures of Sebastian and I just drew up my own copy, as you saw there, my own reference. So I didn't do turnarounds. I just wanted to do just a straightforward drawing and just work over the top of that. When you follow my basic Nomad course, there's obviously ways to put the side, the front, the top. It depends how you work, and this is just the way I've started to work over the years. And I just like to get close with just one image, as you can see. So because it was just a basic sphere, I just started using the move tool, pulled it around, started to just pull out the major shapes. So I'm going to wrap it in a shell, obviously. So I wanted to just get all of the core or the major reference points, sort of the lips, the eyes. Now the eyes are going to be separate, but I just thought it was great just to put them in position so I could measure them a little bit. I am working symmetrically in this video, so as always it's just better to start symmetrically and then break the symmetry later on, because even though the image isn't symmetrical, the character is. So I'm just thinking about everything on one side, on this side that I can see. So I added a second object, another sphere, and then I just used the trim tool and just split away the bottom. So now basically I've got like a turtle shell. Obviously this is a crab, and it's as simple as that. Now what I do as I work through projects like this is I try and colour them as close to the project reference. So here I've just literally, you can't colour pick from the reference background, but I'm just literally eyeballing it to say, right, I want a deep red colour. And I think it just works as you're doing, especially if you're doing character work or specific creature work where it's, the colours really matter, like in this. I just think it's really cool to stick with what it is you're making, and it just makes you feel like you've got further on. Be careful, because if you just stick with one material all the way through it, you might start making mistakes. So by all means just keep changing your materials just to see if it's working. So again, another sphere. I've just done a basic shape for the upper shell, and now for the bottom one I've just used a sphere, and I'm literally just using the move tool, just pull it around, mush it into place, and as you can see, none of these objects are anywhere close to the final. I'm not trying to get an end result. What I'm trying to get is a primary form, is what we'd call it. And the primary form is it's got one of everything that you need. So it's got a shell, it's got the lower shell, it's got the body, it's got a place for the eyes. We're measuring the height, we're measuring the width, we're looking at it from does the lower part of the shell tuck under the upper carapace really well? Do the lips look full enough, and do they come out far enough, and is the head the right sort of angled back? They're the kind of big sweeping shapes and statements that we're looking for. When you've got side, front and back reference, you can do this a lot. If you're new to this, I would suggest you do that and bring in several images. You can even have them all on one page, but as you get more and more experience with this, you can easily just eyeball it like this and just get a feel for the character. And it really doesn't take long. As you can see, this whole project was only half an hour. And I have speeded it up here because I don't want you to sit through that half an hour, but it really doesn't take long at all to get these kind of really nice characters done. So what I've done there is I've just grabbed a cylinder. I've just used voxel remesh, just basically just giving it a quick low res remesh. Some people I have heard say are struggling with remeshing still. But the way to handle it is On that remeshing, put the slider as low as you can for as long as you can, and keep it really rough and basic for as long as you can. And make sure that in the settings you've got any of the settings that affect how high you can go. Make sure you've done that as well. So all of that's covered in our basics course or on this YouTube channel if you're if you're not at this level and you want to go back and check some of those things. So we're actually about to redo the beginners course because it's 8 months old now, and there's been about 9 different updates. So I'm hoping to rehash the whole thing, hopefully by the end of June, maybe early July. So another piece, and this time, so obviously the leg is segmented. It's not done particularly realistically because there's only 2 segments to the crab, which I thought was a bit odd. I don't remember doing that when I last made the Little Mermaid crab. So I think it's maybe it was a stylized choice that they chose. I would have thought there would be the full amount of segments that you get in a crab, but like there is with the hand and the claw. So basically, take it. Use the move tool, smooth it, remesh it, scale it, smooth it down in the end to get that point, pull it out to the side, rotate it, and there you go, there's one of your claws. And obviously, one of the great things about digital of any kind is that, we've got repeats. So all we need to do is basically take the one we've done and move it and repeat it. And, we could have joined the first segment with the claw part, but I just thought it was easy just to do it like this. So just looking at the reference, how does it look on the reference, and then just sort of like eyeball it from all those dimensions. Then with the move tool, just move it around. One thing you can't tell from this angle, and it's something you have to be careful of, especially if you're going to 3D print, is are all the legs touching the ground, because we're going to want 6 contact points with it once we duplicate these legs. So we take perspective off, snap it to the side, and then just level up the legs like that, and just make sure that with perspective off, those legs are all dead on the ground, or you'll get a wobbly model, which it does happen. And what I find is the best way really is to line it all up, and then just use at the end, just use the move tool just to put that tip absolutely spot on to the ground. And I'm just realigning each one now before I mirror them across. And again, a combination of the move brush and the move tool will get you almost everything that you want in regards to positioning this. So we've got all the legs lined up, and we haven't mirrored them across yet because it's just now we've got the legs in place. It's time to go back and just make sure that the lower part of the shell fits correctly, and make sure that it's all reading well from all angles. So another sphere, another bit of Z remeshing. If you've been using Nomad for a while, you'll know how simple this is. If you're a new user and you're sat there thinking, "Gosh, this is I can't get to this level," this is you can get to this level really, really quickly if you know what you're going to make. The tools in Nomad, as they are in I would say probably Nomad's easier than things like ZBrush, and even easier than Blender's sculpting, because they're very, very transparent tools, very, very easy to use. So this is I use Nomad as a great way to introduce people to digital sculpting, simply because the tools are so accessible. You can learn them in an afternoon, and obviously you're not going to learn to do characters at this level in an afternoon, but you can get to this in very, very limited amount of time. If I was teaching somebody ZBrush to get to these kind of levels, it would be a significant amount longer, probably 5 or 6 times longer, because there's so much you would have to wade through to understand what the tools are doing. But with Nomad and on the iPad, it just feels very, very simple to teach. And I do like it because it is a gateway into things like Blender and ZBrush. A lot of people that I've worked with from last year are now moving into Blender and ZBrush and the more complex apps. So there's nothing wasted in what you're doing with a program like Nomad or Forger even, which is really the sculpting program that started me off on this journey. I'm looking forward actually to seeing what Maxon do with Forger, and I'm hoping soon we're going to see something come out, because it's competition is what we want in this industry, and if Nomad you know, Stefan, who codes this, does an amazing job. But when you get competition, it drives everything forward, and I just think it would be fantastic to see, you know, Forger come back with a bounce. So the claw's on now, and again, it was a sphere. So there's, you know, I've used so few little tools in this. It's incredible, really. It's just primitives, and then move, and then clay, and a little bit of flatten mostly. So I've kept that arm segmented so I can move it around. And as you can see, I just basically pulled the claw in and sculpted it, you know, sculpted around it. So what, you know, not really much different than the other claws. So time to do some eyes now. So just picked I picked a bit of a different matte cap here. So I was looking for one, ended up with a white matte cap, and I tried a comic one which looked rubbish. The eyes are yellow, so I just went over to a nice yellow, popped it in place. I mean, whenever you're doing anything that's got eyes, it's good to have separate eyeballs and then sculpt around them. You know, if you try to do it all in one mesh, you'll invariably get the shape of the eyeball wrong. So it's good to make your eyeballs, even if you merge them in at a later stage, it's just better to do it that way, because you can then, you know, sculpt that volume knowing that you're going around a shape. And obviously an eyeball obviously it's close to being a sphere, but then you've got the lens bumping at the front in a real model, and that does affect the shape of the eye sometimes. So it's great to have a representation of that eye in there. And as you can see here on screen now, I'm sculpting the eyebrows over, knowing where the height of the eyes is that I've chosen. So it's helping me immensely to, you know, to get that volume right there. I do use a lot of the move tool here to tuck things underneath other things, because what we want to try and show is a nice crease where the eye is. So I'll be inflating it, or, you know, using clay to sculpt on it, then smooth that down, then pull it around a little bit, pull it up and down to get the nice crease on it. I'm remeshing it there, actually. You can see me doing a voxel remesh, to change the amount of voxel, the amount of polygons I've got to play with. And now I'm using the move tool. You can see me pulling it. You saw it go underneath there. So with smooth and move, you get these nice pinched looking, you know, edges really. I've not even used the flatten tool there, but that already looks better just by using those couple of tools. So you're pulling it in underneath. You'll see me do it in the corner in a moment. You pull it in underneath and then pull it up from the outside, and you get this nice turned edge. And that can apply to anything where you've got like one surface meeting another. I just went to colour, turned to black, popped in the black itself. I painted a specular highlight for a change, so that's what you see on some models, rather than the material doing all the work. And sometimes I do that and then change it at a later stage if I want to make the eyes realistic, which I wasn't too bothered about here. And that's it. That's the bulk of the model done in one fell swoop, really. So obviously saving it along the way. So basically what I did now is just, you know, went over and did some of the bigger volumes and just made sure that everything was reading well from all these different angles. Make sure the corner of the mouth, you know, is curling correctly. And he's got that, you know, I haven't broken the symmetry properly at this stage yet, so it won't fully pop until the symmetry is not symmetrical, which is called breaking the symmetry. So this next little bit now is all about just showing you how the parts fit together. So this is something in ZBrush called Expose, and all I did just to test it for myself, I'm looking at the lighting there a little bit first of all, but I basically just moved all the parts, I merged them all together after I moved them apart on a layer. And what that means is I can slide the layer back and forth, and it just showed me how all the parts come together. You really don't need to do this, but it's just quite interesting to, you know, to see it all out like this. And then when you run the layer, if you've done it on a layer, you can just literally run it back and it'll join them all back together, which will give you a really, you know, it basically gives you a way to look at how your pieces are. And if you get to the point where you want to 3D print this, you know, you could do all of your jointing and then, you know, make sure everything fits and just check it that way. I really hope you're enjoying these videos, and if you are, please give it a thumbs up. It does help us to get in front of other people who might like this kind of content. We do videos usually on a Friday and a Wednesday, and we're covering topics like VR creation tools, iPad sculpting, and we're moving on to things like ZBrush.